Welcome to The Political Mechanic. I'm your host, Stephen Thane. This is the third in a series to help voters determine the difference between limited and big government candidates. The first two dealt with experts and institutions. This episode deals with those that are wannabe gods, found more often in the Democrat Party. So let's begin. Throughout history, there's been a particular human habit. Some rulers claimed to be gods. Pharaohs, emperors, kings. They didn't just want to govern, they declared themselves divine. Of course, despite the pomp and declarations, every single one of them met the same fate as us mortals. They all died. So how exactly were they gods? Simple. Gods make rules and they made rules. Their power was so great that no one could challenge them. To be a god in this sense means to set the standards, define right and wrong, determine rewards and punishments, and hand down decrees that shape the lives of others. Ancient gods didn't hurl thunderbolts, they wrote the rule books and enforced them, often brutally. Interestingly, the Christian God makes rules, a being who defines the rules of life and mortality. But with a twist. His rules are enforced by natural consequences built into the fabric of the universe. Touch fire, get burned. Sow selfishness, reap destruction. Sow righteousness, reap peace. Cause and effect are not just physics, they're moral laws. This is the God the Founding Fathers appealed to in the Declaration of Independence when they wrote of the laws of nature and of nature's God. They believed in a God who built a reality of order, consequence, and accountability. Most Christians and many Republicans still believe in this God today, whose will should be discovered and obeyed, because obeying his laws results in human progress. But not everyone is comfortable with this kind of God. After all, an all-powerful God who enforces consequences is also a God who holds people accountable. He just doesn't bless, he judges. He doesn't just love, he instructs. And he doesn't bend the rules when it's inconvenient. That can be annoying if you are a person who does not want to be held accountable. In fact, there are just two types of people in the world. The first group accepts that they live in a world governed by cause and effect. They don't always like the rules, but they try to understand them and live accordingly, knowing that accountability, both now and later, is built into the system. The second group looks at the rules of reality and says, I didn't sign up for this. They're even angry. They want to revise the system, write their own consequences, and install themselves as the moral architects of the universe. Rather arrogant. In other words, they want to be gods. Just like the pharaohs and the Babylonian kings of old, they don't want to be confined to an eternal structure. They want to be the structure. They want to remake the rules of gender, family, morality, and meaning. Their political efforts aren't just about rights or freedoms. They're about rulemaking, divine rulemaking. They're not asking, what are the eternal truths we must live by? They're saying, let's write new ones. This brings us to the modern divide. Republicans, broadly speaking, are still drawn to the idea of an eternal, omnipotent God, one whose rules are not up for revision. Democrats, on the other hand, seem increasingly drawn to a worldview where they take on the role of the gods themselves. They don't want to submit to the laws of nature, they want to override them. Hence, we might call them, at least in spirit, the party of the gods. Look at the examples. Men can be women, despite every chromosome protesting otherwise. There are more than two genders, as if biology is just a suggestion. Marriage can be redefined from a union ordered toward procreation to virtually any emotional contract. Parental rights are conditional. The state now reserves the right to overrule parents on education, identity, and even medical decisions. The laws of supply and demand no longer apply. EV mandates impose artificial order where choice once ruled. These aren't just policy changes, they are philosophical revolutions, an attempt to unseat the old God and replace him with a council of human gods who define morality, rewrite biology, and control the consequences. And this is the real heart of the political divide today. It's not merely left versus right. It's not just about taxes or regulations. It's about two fundamentally different worldviews. One says we are created beings accountable to an eternal creator whose rules are fixed and wise. The other says we are our own creators, accountable to no one but ourselves, and we reserve the right to rewrite reality as we see fit. Politics, then, is no longer about management, it's about metaphysics. You're just not choosing between parties, you're choosing between two gods, the eternal God who is, or the many little gods who want to be. Thank you for your time.